are joined today by Jason Jenn, the outreach specialist. Is that your title? At the
Yes.
Torrance Art Museum. And he is going to give us an overview of what's happening at TAM, what's happening on the LA art scene, and how that's been affected by COVID and what's going on in the community. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thanks for having me here. And it's been wonderful to listen to all the talks and get the different perspectives on famous artists and have this opportunity to present then some of the things we've been doing at TAM, which, this pandemic has been turning everybody's world upside down. And it's been really interesting how different people have reacted in different ways. But hi, Valerie. One of the things that that I've liked particularly is about the past year of what we've done is kind of make lemonade out of the lemons that we've been handed. And I have to say I've really enjoyed doing the staff picks. Each of the staff members here have been writing personal essays about art that they're connected to. I think that's very much in line with what Tama Talks have been doing, is art that really resonates with the various members. And so the opportunity to present staff picks, it's been lovely also to read perspectives from the various staff members, Hope, Sune, Max, and Noel, to find out what makes us tick. And that was the goal that Max set out for the staff picks, is that everybody have an opportunity to, the public, to understand what our perspective and what drives us as a staff here. Also, we've done Please Don't Touch the Art, which I love the title of that as a pun, because you can't touch the art during COVID. It's all been virtual, and you're not supposed to touch the art when you're in a museum, although I have several friends who I know love to do it when no one is looking. A no-no. So it's been a really great thing. Particularly Hope has been spearheading that with other, with input from us. But it's really great to have each month sort of an overview virtually of different links and resources that the public can engage with. And then, of course, we've done the open call, open sourced exhibition called Hobson's Choice. We've had 2 rounds of Hobson's Choice. So there was the early round of Hobson's Choice. And I didn't know, first of all, what Hobson was, but Max, being British, has well knows that the unique history of this sort of, and I'm kind of blanking on some of it now, but this idea that you have your choice of any horse in the stable, as long as it's the first horse in the first stable, that's your choice. So it's kind of a no choice. And so taking that kind of concept is we have no choice but to present virtually. So we wanted to stay engaged with the public. We wanted to see what different works are out there by contemporary artists. And so it was a great way to have people submit, for Max to be able to see what people are presenting and what they're working on currently, and then to have a pick each week.
I'm so glad that you clarified that the idea of Hobson's Choice meant that you had to default to the virtual, because I was originally applying it to the art and I thought, no, it's not right. So yeah. I'm so happy that, you clarified that it's the default of us having to show the work virtually as opposed to
right.
inside.
Yeah. So it's been great. And then, the first round we had, it was kind of exhausting. So to be in charge of the social media and then have 7 days a week we're presenting a different piece of art, that was really exhausting. So for our second round, the past several months, we did 2 artists a week. We initially were going to do 1 artist a week, and then it changed to 2. And then we actually last month, we cut off Hobson's Choice because now we are gearing up for all the exciting things that are ahead for us. The announcement of museums opening in March kind of was a bit of a surprise for a lot of people. We knew that it was going to be coming soon. We knew that the numbers were going down, and a lot of museums, you know, were kind of taken by surprise of the actual, you know, now you're open next week. And a lot of, you know, we just had a meeting with the Southern California Museums organization, and everyone's checking in about when they're opening. There's a variety of different dates. Everyone is doing it differently. Everyone is sticking to low capacity rates as required. Once they open up the tier to allow even more people in, some of the museums in Southern California are still going to remain at 25%. But across the board, there's a variety of different opening dates, you know, now, April, May, June, and July. So we are being extra cautious because we want to make sure that everything is lined up and done in a very proper way. We also are, you know, we depend on volunteers. So we are currently going to be doing a new initiative to get some more volunteers involved in Torrance Art Museum. And it really is, you know, TAM Advocates is an example of that's who we depend on. We depend on that connection with the community and the support. And so it's going to be really important moving forward to have a great volunteer base. A lot of our volunteers are, you know, everyone's dealing with different personal issues. So keeping that in mind, we are being extra cautious, and we're excited about what is coming up. And I won't talk too much about it, but because I know that in future upcoming Tama talks, there will be a lot of discussion about the public arts initiative, the exhibition Ultra, and that is opening in July. That will have Torrance Art Museum as the hub and about 20 different art pieces spread throughout the city of Torrance. And the great thing about a public art exhibition is that it's open air, that everyone gets to enjoy it, and it becomes an adventure for everyone to have. And I think that's what everyone is really looking for right now. We've been pretty much cooped inside for a year to different effects. And we haven't been able to go to museums until recently. And while there is still this kind of rush now, everybody thinking they you know, to go out and do things, I think it's still great to be cautious and still to, you know, to take in things not so fast. We, you know, in Los Angeles, the art scene here moves at a very quick pace. And I myself have been exhausted from weekends of going from one opening to another. And it's been really interesting to have Zoom openings and go to attend those. And, you know, one bright side about Zoom openings is it's the first time that I've actually heard artists talking about their works. And I actually have a Zoom opening next week at Angels Gate Cultural Center for an exhibition that won't open officially to the public physically until April 29th. But I'm looking forward to that opportunity to have this kind of talk with each of the artists presenting what their work is about. So again, like I said, it's about making lemonade out of the lemon of the situation. And Ultra this summer is going to be a great event for people to, you know, get together with their friends, to, you know, look at a map and you know, tour around Torrance and see Torrance in a different way. I think that while the Torrance Art Museum is known by a lot of artists in Los Angeles, a lot of people have commented on how they've only been there once, or they don't get there enough because it's out of the way. But I think having this type of exhibition will allow a lot of people this sort of a big momentous adventure to go to, and to grab friends, to grab family members, and to be safe about, you know, exploring art. So I think that's one of the best aspects of the outcome.
And so the mural that will be on the side of the Torrance Art Museum, that is also included, is that correct?
It currently is, yes. I mean, as with anything that we have learned from COVID, is there's always the unexpected. So we are planning for that. We're looking forward to that. It's been years in the making, I understand, from Max and various staff members. So it's part of the plan, but nothing is for certain. So the
Sure.
unexpected could happen.
I know there are several murals in Hermosa, and so I think 4 or 5, maybe even more. So, and interestingly enough, you were mentioning the Redondo Beach group, because for some reason, that whole Redondo Beach art environment um, seems just so much more prevalent than in Torrance. And Torrance actually has so many art venues. The Arts Council sort of showcases it when they can. Uh, Definitely pre-COVID, so many of the arts groups that are in the city. So I think having the public art piece is really going to raise the bar culturally for people not only in the city, but more so, kind of like the TAM has, more so for people outside of the city confines to look at art, all different kinds of art, not just locally generated art.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how all that. I know that I'm not sure that Redondo Beach necessarily has more than Torrance, but I know that being a member of the Friends of Redondo Beach Arts, that they're trying to get their own cultural space, which they don't have right now. So the
Oh,
fact that
okay,
the
okay.
Torrance Art Museum exists in Torrance, it really is the premier
Art.
exhibition space for contemporary art in South Bay. There are other places, the Palos Verdes Art Center, and there's the Manhattan Beach, but they're different entities, and their focus is different than the contemporary scene.
Okay.
So, what else? Well, so we can kind of phase in a bit to what we're also doing is, as Max has um, allowed each of the staff members to curate a show in Gallery 2. So as you had previously, yes. So we're going to have, I'll touch on this question, but we're having an opening ceremony on Saturday, July 17th at noon outside of Torrance Art Museum. So there will be speeches, there will be a public unveiling. The mural, of course, will be painted before that, but I will be doing some documenting and recording, and we're going to have a series of videos that lead up to the opening of Ultra. So people will get a chance to, we'll have like a preface to what's happening. So that is one reason why, for my job as outreach specialist is to I took a break recently from posting so much on social media so that I could prepare myself for what's to come. So we're going to have a very busy schedule in these next coming months. I know that Max Hope and Sune have been very busy. The three of them have really been spearheading the organizational aspect of the artworks that are part of Ultra. And I will be doing some performance art pieces, or I won't be doing, but I'm curating other people that will be happening. So all of that's coming very soon. One of the reasons why not to post this right away.
I will.
Jason, got
Yep.
a question.
Mhm.
I was planning on inviting Macy's. I think Eve was the original person that reached out to them. I just don't want to double up. If someone from TAM is going to reach out to Macy's and invite them for the 17th, or if I should do that.
Good question. I will email you later with the answer to that.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yep. So back to the Gallery 2 shows. So Hope Escurra did the opening of her show virtually in the fall, and you had her talk about rewilding structures, which was a great show. And originally I was supposed to do a show last April, again, Lemonade. So it's been postponed, and a lot has changed during that time. But I'm really excited that my show will be included in the upcoming opening. So I did put together a little slideshow to introduce you to some of the, to all the artists who are going to be in Even Sparkles Have Shadows. I'll share the screen right now with you all. And let me know if this actually pops up. Do you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, so I'll just read this real quick. The artworks of Even Sparkles Have Shadows dazzle the viewer with beautiful, colorful, playful images, at least on first glance. Closer examination reveals a curious undertone of hidden meaning that reflects our current culture's social media savvy of glossy presentation and the need to put our best foot forward in spite of the daunting realities. Now, when Max asked for the three of us to submit ideas and proposals for an exhibition, this immediately came to mind because as the outreach specialist, I'm working with social media. And as I was telling you, Janine, that I have a love-hate relationship with social media. And I think probably a lot of people do. Social media, is kind of a recent phenomena, and it's fantastic for artists to get to share their vision and their ideas, but it's also a lot to keep up with on a regular basis. And there's a lot of discussion about how much people put into their social media and how much, and how it takes away from their time putting into the work. And, there's also a lot of fakeness in social media. We've heard a lot about fake news, but there's a lot of fake social media. And being that I also co-own a company that is involved in preserving and promoting the contemporary art scene in Los Angeles, we have a philosophy of being organic in our social media outreach. And we kind of marvel at the number of, almost daily, the sort of fake accounts that want us to spend money on increasing our number of likes and our number of followers. But when you find out what they do, it's really creating these ghost accounts, these unreal accounts that are out there in the world. So it kind of defeats the purpose of even having social media and having this presence, because you have a lot of fakeness out there. So it's a very curious place to be in, and I thought that this was a great starting point to have an exhibition about and a show about that presents this. We see a lot of these glossy images on social media. You see these influencers on social media. That's the name for people who are popular on social media and that have influence. And a lot of companies are giving influencers free merchandise if they'll post, stuff about the product. But there's a lot of, now that we have these apps that allow people to pretty up their image and stuff, there's a lot of manipulated imagery out there that people sort of take as reality. So that's part of the basis of this show, is to present things that sparkle, that have a veneer of enticing images, but that actually have a story behind it in various ways that reveal the fragility of our society, that reveal the shadow side. So the title of the show was originally Sparkle In, Fade Out, but I'm glad that there was this pandemic in some ways of being able to postpone and to have time to really hone in on the theme. So I'm not happy there was a pandemic, but I'm happy that having some time to flesh out the concept and change the title. So Even Sparkles Have Shadows features the artists Michael Craig Carrier, Zara Feeney, Chuck Hohng, David Hollen, Stevie Love, Haleh Mashian, Ken Gunn, Alison Ragguette, and Colin Roberts. Alison Ragguette is the first one that I'm going to mention here. She did this roller skates stuck in gum, and I think that is a great metaphor for what we've all experienced in the pandemic. Was we're moving along, and then suddenly, boom, the works got gunked up. This is a piece that actually she did at Durden and Ray. So Max and Valerie, you might be familiar with her work already from that exhibition, but this is Rejects and Residue. And she works in porcelain, silicone, rubber a lot. And she is Canadian, and currently she's in Canada, but she will be back this summer. She teaches at Cal State University in San Bernardino. And coincidentally, right now, next week, they're opening an art exhibit at Mount Sac in Walnut, which is going to be virtual. So they actually set up this, piece and all of her pieces pretty much at their gallery, but it's not open for the public. These are her wall spills, and these are really cool pieces in that they're the porcelain and silicone, rubber, and glass pieces, but then also when you install them, there's the opportunity to pour extra of this resin, this material, to add to it. So they become these pieces that exist already, but then you have the element that is slightly different based on the pouring and the dripping of the installation. So we are going to have a wall spill. I didn't want to share the picture that we're going to have for our exhibit, but these are samples of what she's done. And I, just admire and love the mix of these materials. I don't really know of any other artist that I've seen that quite combines porcelain and the silicone rubber in the same way, and with such effect. There's, for me, I don't know what anyone else gets from these, but it sort of, to me, has this great commentary on the everyday objects. So there's some everyday objects, or these, drains, these horns, these pipes, but again, the works are gunked up. This was a piece of hers that I found really fascinating that she did years ago, but it's very prevalent for what we're dealing with today, Pathogen Playground. This idea of this children's tea set and play set, and there are just germs and everywhere on the plates and things. Very fun and dangerous, curious piece. And this monumental piece, the cross-section Ellipse, I have to say, this is in the show at Angel's Gate that I co-curated with my partner, Vojislav Radovanovic, called Sanctuary of the Aftermath, that opens next week virtually. And I have to say, this piece was really fun to install. It was also crazy to install. It's over 25 feet long. And she created a map that's plastic, a sheet that you put on the wall, and it has locations of where you put the screw holes, then you take the map off. And this is actually in, I think it was 12 separate pieces that you grab the piece, it's these porcelain pieces, and then this rubber that moves and undulates as you're installing onto the screws. So it takes 3 people to do it safely. And it was very fun sort of choreographing the installation of it. So Alison is an incredible artist, and one to really pay attention to and watch with her works. The second artist that really inspired the show was Ken Gunn, and he grew up in South Korea and received rigorous training in South Korea as a figurative painter, and it's a pretty strict painting school that he went to, and he commented before, I've interviewed him and done studio visits and made a video profile on him, but he really wanted to break away from that in his work, and I think he does it very effectively. But he moved to San Francisco in 2001 and studied commercial art in grad school. And he actually worked for Lucasfilms for 10 years as on the Star Wars films as an illustrator. And then he moved to Los Angeles, and he's been doing his own personal works for about the past 10 years. You can probably see from these works that he incorporates a lot of crystal beads and sequins and fabrics and different techniques into his paintings. And he commented that he had a friend, an older friend in Glendale, that was a doll maker, and that when she passed away, she left him her crystal beads and some different fabrics, and that's when he started to incorporate them into his paintings. And he feels like he is carrying on some of her work, but in a completely new way. So these pieces are, he's referencing a lot of artwork and historical art, both from his country and other countries, in his works, but then he's incorporating these very, modern image, this sort of pixelated Bambi here, and Bambi is urinating. So he's playing with it, and then you've got the Delft, but this isn't Delft. This is the Asian, that blue pottery that Delft in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands took on as their own. But he's using all of these different techniques in his painting. So I'm really looking forward to what we're going to get from him. We're going to get a new piece that he's worked on in the past year for the exhibition. And I love this piece, Hollywood. The third artist is David Hollen, and I've known David Hollen for about 15 years. He's a sculptor from Wisconsin, based in LA, downtown LA. And he works, he has a very interesting way of his mind of putting these very rigid geometrical structures, but then breaking them apart and doing unusual things. And I love his work with materials as well. So these are the metal frame, but then he's using bouncy rubber balls from the toy district that he lives nearby, and cuts them apart and reassembles them. And there's sort of a coincidental connection with COVID in some ways. These almost contain the molecular structure, it feels like, with COVID. So, these jewel facets that he's using on these pieces. So there's sort of even though these are older pieces, there's a correlation with what we're all familiar with now, the structure of the coronavirus, that I think is fascinating. And he has shown here at the Torrance Art Museum before, right, Max? You are familiar with his work? He did a house made out of rope, I believe. This piece on the left here is the black thorns of this piece are actually made of porcelain. So, it's interesting, like Alison, that David works with this unique combination of, you don't normally think of porcelain and metal going together. And this sculpture piece on the right here, this dodecahedron, using these Tibetan style flames of porcelain, I absolutely love. We actually wanted this piece to be in the sanctuary of the Aftermath exhibition, but we discovered that the doorway to get the piece into the exhibition gallery was too small to actually fit the frame of this sculpture piece. So we had to switch it out, but luckily we have a beautiful piece instead. But David worked many years for a private collector of Tibetan shrines and artifacts, and he did restoration. So he is very familiar with the Tibetan and Buddhist artwork, and he incorporated some of that in this piece. These are some other pieces by David. The Wounded Beast on the left is this suspended sculpture that you can actually walk inside. And then this gateway here is actually a gate that David designed for where I used to work, my former office in El Segundo of Hollen Corporation. And so he built this nonagon based on the owner of the business's love of nine-sided shapes. So David Hollen, very amazing sculptor and fabricator of materials. We're also going to have in the show, I'm just going to briefly touch upon some of the other artists. Zara Monet Feeney has an exhibition at MOA Lancaster right now. She has a solo show in the Cedar building. So we're going to get a different work from her than I was originally hoping for. But these pieces, what I love about her works is these blacklight pieces that spill onto the floor, and she incorporates a lot of jewels and jewel tones. And her current exhibit at MOA Cedar she's just done some really amazing new works in the past year that deals with the coronavirus, but in a way that is not so on the face surface of things. But she's dealing a lot with this mix that I just love, and there's a deeper message behind a lot of her work, but they sparkle on the surface with a deeper story behind it all. Colin Roberts is going to have one of his holographic pillows in the show. And, he was another artist that right away I was like, I love this idea of you have this beautiful, sparkling pillow, but you can't rest your head on it, because if you were to do that, it would just break apart. And that to me also resonates so well with what even sparkles have shadows means. It's beautiful on the surface, but it's rendered in some ways useless, or that there's no way that the traditional utilitarian purpose of it can be used. So I'm really excited with what we're going to get and what it's going to look like when we light the show. We're also going to have works by Michael Craig Carrier, and these are some of his latest neon works. We're going to have some neon that is encased with rattlesnake skin. So I love this idea of, it glows, and you go into the surface, you see up close that it's a rattlesnake skin that he's collected from basically his backyard. He works on property east of here. So I think people are going to be really shocked when they get closer and they realize that there's rattlesnake skin. Chuck Hohng is going to have a video art piece in the show, but I thought I'd introduce you to some of the other works that he does. He is known for making these teddy bears, and he currently had a residency at Camera Obscura in Santa Monica that actually he was one of the first residencies that occurred after quarantine was enacted. So he had a very different experience than usual for that residency, where normally people come by and see you working through the window of the residency, but he was having to do it virtually. And so it was a very different experience for him, but he sews bears out of different materials that have been donated or that come from pieces of clothing and such. Again, we're gonna have a video art piece that is completely different than these, but I wanted to give you an example of some of his work. And then we're gonna have an art piece by Haleh Mashian. I won't get into I know some of her personal story, but I love that she incorporates a lot of glitter into her work. Normally glitter doesn't have such an association with fine art, but I think that she does it very effectively. And I think it's becoming, this use of materials is becoming, people can do anything in contemporary art, as you know. And she has her forests on the right. We're going to have a piece from her Tear series. And the idea of the Tear series is that you could think it looks like rain, but they're really these sparkling tears. And there's a deeper story from her personal life of loss and from fleeing her home country of Iran to come to America and leaving behind family members there. So, and this is to deal with the fragility also that she feels as a woman, and the strength that she feels as a woman combined into a piece, these sparkling tears. So we're going to have an illuminated tear piece. This is one that I just added in at the last minute to the show because I know Stevie Love's story recently is fitting the theme so well. So we'll have a piece of hers. She recently lost her archive of art. They burned in the fire that she had in her home. And so she lost a huge body of work in those fires. But she's creating new pieces. She involves a lot of beads and sequins and these sort of landscapes that she creates with the synthetic fur materials. Again, it's about the story that is behind the piece of art. So I'm gonna try to find a way to incorporate these stories during the exhibition that people can also experience. And I thought I'd just share 3 artists who are not going to be in the show, but they're part of this inspiration of the show. This Sara Shakell, she's a big social media influencer, and she even has her own app that you can download and sparkle up your pictures. And I love this piece of the rib cage and the sparkles inside there. But she's the sparkle queen, and on Instagram, she's got thousands of followers, and I think she's a bit too big to pay attention, right? Like I've reached out to her, but I just love her. Like, she sparkles everything, even toilet paper. Machine Dazzle is someone who I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to work with. Actually, he is the costumer for Taylor Mac, and I was in the Taylor Mac show in 2018 here in downtown Los Angeles. Taylor Mac is, the MacArthur Genius Award-winning performance artist, and Machine Dazzle creates all of Taylor Mac's incredible costumes that sparkle and dazzle. And Machine Dazzle has his own career as a performance artist and has shown in many different places. And lastly, Kathleen Ryan is part of the inspiration of the show and does these decaying fruits, decaying objects, showing mold with beads and sparkles. And I think, again, that just feeds in to the theme that it sparkles, it's beautiful on the surface, but when you think about what it means, it's decaying fruit. But I think we can find, what have we learned from this pandemic, and what is, what we can gain from it, and the darker stories that are going to remain in us, moving forward. So that's my presentation. Thanks for listening. I'm curious to hear from you all what you think, and also just how you're doing during all of this. All of us that are gathered here.
It's
Looks like
really,
a really good show.
go ahead.
Oh,
Matt.
thanks.
I look
I'm
forward
looking forward to I'm really looking forward to setting it up finally. It's been a long time coming. It's interesting, Max. I know, a lot of, I think Gallery 2 works very well when you have a small number of artists, but Hope really proved that, you can have a good group of, I really loved her exhibition and how she had, what was it, 9 or 10 artists in that space, but each piece really stood out on its own and
Yeah.
had a conversation.
So maybe share with us a little bit about, having the opportunity to curate a show. And once you get it, you kind of get the get-go to say, okay, I get to have a show. What is the, how do you choose the artists that you want to have included in your show?
It's a really good question. And again, it feels great to have this opportunity to do something. I've curated a few shows in the past, but I think working here at the museum the past 2 years, you get hooked and you get the bug. You see how Max works. I've really enjoyed the talks with when Max delivers his artist talks to the volunteers, because that really reveals an insight. And I think moving forward, there needs to be a way of how to really capture that story that Max tells for the exhibition. So, being a volunteer, you always get the inside scoop. You're always getting like the to be in the know. And I don't have the opportunity always to visit artists in studio visits. I have done a few. I've actually never met Alison, for example, in person. We've only talked on the phone and by Zoom. She's a wonderful individual, and I've really enjoyed our talks. And she and David are part of the Sanctuary show because I just am a huge fan of that work. And I think when you go out, when I go to exhibits, I'm always, whatever strikes me, you always keep it in the back of your mind and you try to figure out how to put it together. And, there isn't always the time to put together a show, but having this opportunity at TAM is great because you know that it's going to do, you're going to do something with it. So.
Well, good. I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us about what's coming up, and particularly about the public art that's going to be happening. I tried to keep up with you and throw the links. Did I lose you? Okay, good. Throw the links for the artists into the chat, just for us to be aware.
Yeah, I was just looking at all that. That's great.
So that way, I just kind of pilfered off of your slide. But thank you so much. Does anyone that's tuning in have anything to add before we close today?
I've got
Max?
a couple of questions, just from, because I'm not in the same room, and so this kind of objectifies this exchange a little bit. So my question is this, what turns out to be the positives and the negatives of your first museum curator project?
Well, when you first gave the opportunity, it was like, this sort of like, what would I do? And this, pitch things out, but it's taken some time, to develop. And I'm glad that there was this time to develop the piece. But also what I've learned even in just this past month, having the show at Angels Gate, is this ability to be flexible. And we have to be flexible, particularly during this strange time that we live in, because there's always going to be the unexpected. So again, that's why it's like with the public art event, it's like, we can say we're doing something, but there's always the opportunity for unexpected things. You install something and you realize, oh, I didn't realize the door was going to be 2 inches too short than a normal door because, you're in a historic building. And the sculpture piece fits through a normal door, but not through a historic, 2-inch smaller door frame. So, you have to kind of roll with things. And luckily I know enough of the artist's work to be able to change things around. And, for this show, Even Sparkles Have Shadows, the work is some of the pieces are exactly the same as they were when first proposed, but now there's some changes, some additions. a couple things have been switched out. Some things are unavailable now. So it's really about adapting and being flexible. And I think, also the conceit of this show is to have half the gallery in darkness. I didn't mention that before, but half the gallery in darkness and the other half not. But it might be a little harder to achieve that because of the reflection of light on the white wall. But, you do what you can. And I think the key point is that the art has a conversation with the art that it's associated with. So, working at a museum and having more time to take in the works and being the person who's in charge of taking a photograph and trying to spread the word of it on social media, you kind of start to get to sense out the story that's behind, the works and what that conversation is between the pieces. And to me, that's the most fun part, is what is the artwork saying to you? What are you getting from it? And I think that we live in this culture of, partly of the theme of this show is we live in this culture where we're scrolling through our phones looking at artwork, and it's like you see one part of it, but everyone is so looking forward to seeing stuff in person, and it makes such a difference.
Yeah, it's funny because the act of curating, the process itself, it lends itself to this flexibility through the understandings that change when you start thinking of works together. And of course, that adapts and changes how one thinks about which objects and which artists might be appropriate. But once you come to that act of installation, that in itself starts a more direct interpretation between the works. And that again affects how you think of what happens in an exhibition. So it becomes much more multi-layered and complex. And I think, people think that, oh, here's a bunch of artworks and it says this, and it's never that simple. It always becomes more and more complex. And if somebody's done their job really well, then it leads you into those complexities in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
Sam, did you have something?
No, I'm just really intrigued with this show, and I love the concept and I love the artwork. Well done, Jason. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you're going to do the virtual opening, because I'm thinking, is this the first virtual opening that TAM has had?
Oh, no, we're not doing a virtual opening.
Oh, okay. There's not one for, okay, so.
We're doing a real opening.
Yeah.
Well, it's just not, we can't do, we can't do the crowds like we used to. That's the,
So I guess then maybe building on that, like the idea of doing something similar to what you were saying earlier about a virtual opening, where you actually can invite the artists who are participating and, have them speak a little bit about their work. Maybe we could do some, I'm not sure where they're all coming from, but that would be awesome to hear their spin.
Yeah. Did everyone get a chance to, on our website, we have in Hope's exhibition, Rewilding Structures, we have 3 artist talks, which I check them out because
They're on our site too. They're on the Tama website still. So, and I'm pretty, what I'll do is while you're chatting, I'll find the TAM YouTube link. You have your own channel too, and it should be up there as well.
Yeah. So it's, there's so much more that we'd all love to do here. It's just a matter of, we don't have that many hours that we get to put into our jobs. So it makes things a lot harder. So for example, Ultra is going to have over 20 artists or 20, and this map that is being created for all of Torrance. You have Desert X, which has 10 this year and has huge sponsors and huge staff. So it's pretty amazing what people are going to see in July with Ultra. And we're just going to do our best. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's the first time out. And I think everyone's just going to be pleased, and it's going to be a blueprint for the future of possibility. So.
Well, good. It's exciting. All right, well, as we discussed, we recorded this, and so it will be posted. We'll probably post it in the next couple of weeks or so. And I put a link in the chat to the TAM YouTube page also, if you wanted to listen to those artist talks. Will you be doing something similar with some of the artists in this part in your show?
Definitely, we will aim for that. You know, it's all
Okay.
up to the artists if they're wanting to talk and stuff.
Okay, perfect. Well, we are looking forward to it. So we did have to move the date for the Fiona Ray Tama talk. It will be in April, but instead of on the 9th, it will be on the 23rd. And I changed that on the website, on the Tama website, and I changed it on the Facebook event, which are really like the only two places that we're pretty much marketing it, as well as the Evite that will get sent out after this talk. I'll probably send it out on Sunday or Monday. And so we did change that, but it will be at 1 o'clock. It'll just be on April 23rd. And that will be with Max talking about the artist Fiona Ray. And as you're watching, I mean, if you have ideas for future Tama Talks, please let us know. Max and I were chatting about it and thought that if we could do even just one a month, once the museum opens, and particularly once start having exhibits and things like that, it's nice to continue to have the virtual, particularly like for me, because I'll be living on the East Coast by the time Ultra is up, but or out in the community. But if we can continue to do the virtual even just once a month, that would be really awesome. So if you have ideas about artists, Valerie, you are more than welcome to use us as a platform really to talk about your work. We did that with Leslie, and so if you she didn't talk about her work, but as an artist who has shown at the TAM and as a TAM docent, you are absolutely more than welcome to use this as a vehicle to talk about your extraordinary work, and we would really love that. Hint, hint.
Oh, thank you, Janine.
Great. It really would be. So I know, were you in Studio System?
Yes, the first one.
Okay, I remember that. And, that Studio System is just a very unique opportunity, the way that it was structured, to be able to go into the museum at the very beginning of a project. And then where we normally have where TAM normally had their opening, it would be a closing for the completion of the work, and it was just extraordinary. So hopefully that will come in 2022, maybe Max, 23.
This next year, the next one.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was a great experience, I think, for the audience and the artists both.
Sam did it as well.
Oh,
Yes.
did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a great time. And I know that for some of us, we were creating work not just for the closing at TAM, but that work became like the beginning of another body of work for other exhibits, which was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we would like to open up that platform. I mean, we're advocating for TAM, but at the same time, we really are wanting to support the members. And so if you are an artist and you want to, use TAMA to help you sort of, like Leslie did a talk on an artist that she really enjoyed. And so we can do things like that. It's a nice venue for folks just to learn more about new art that they maybe haven't seen before. So. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so very much. Like I said, take a look for this on the TAMA website, and then also on the TAMA YouTube channel. I'll get it up in a week or so.